Hey now Brawlers, my name is Nick Meanahan, this is Board Game Brawl, and it is time for our little wrap-up of my top 100 games of all time for 2014. I'll have to add that distinction because really, I had a lot of fun this time, and I think that assuming my channel is still around, I'm going to do this year by year. So this is just some random stray thoughts that I had while I was doing the list and afterwards when I had some time to think about it. Just some random stuff. I mean, there's nothing essential. If you don't feel like watching it, please don't feel like you have to. You're not going to learn anything new about my list here, but you might learn some neat little insights into my thought process or just some neat statistics. I kind of like this stuff. I like reading statistics on other people's lists and things like that, so I thought I would go ahead and do it for mine. Now, the first thing I want to say is thank you. I was shocked, totally shocked by how well this whole thing went as far as the responses I got from people, the views that I got, the positive feedback was amazing. So thank you so much, guys. It means a lot to me that you watch any of my videos, but that you were willing to take the time to sit through all of the top 100 that I had, which is a huge time commitment, even if you do break it up into chunks. That's just awesome. I really appreciate it. I was especially surprised by the positive feedback for the negative Board Game Geek comments that I inserted, if that's how you pronounce that word. It's not. I just did it as like a kind of a thing. I just thought it would be kind of funny for me. Like everything I do on this channel is just because I think it's interesting or funny. And so I thought this one, well, I'll just do it because that's what I've always done, is just do stupid stuff because I think it's a kick. I get a kick out of it. But I was surprised by how much people liked it, which is really great because I just wanted to do something different. I want to do something different than all the other lists did, and this one really took off for me. I don't know if anyone else has ever done anything like this. I wouldn't be surprised if someone has, but I certainly, the only influence and inspiration I had was from an old Depeche Mode album that did the same thing with the liner notes for all the singles. They had a good quote and a bad quote, so that's where I got the idea from. But yeah, we'll definitely keep it up in the future. You know, assuming I keep doing these top 100 lists. I'm not going to do it for every top 10 list, but for if I do the top 100, I'll do the Board Game Geek negative comments and try to get new ones every year because there are probably going to be lots of negative comments for every one of the games I listed. It's just natural. There'll be positive comments, there'll be negative comments. They update all the time. Now, as far as the comments go, someone had asked me, not on YouTube, but in real life, when I told them about my plan with the negative comments, they were like, is it disheartening to talk about these fantastic games that you love or games that you think are fantastic and then go on Board Game Geek and look at all these comments just ripping it to shreds? And the answer is no, because it's silly to think that every person is going to like the games that you like. Even if it's a game that you love, you have to expect that there's going to be someone who will walk up to you and say, yeah, that game's terrible. That game just sucks. I can't believe that you like it. That's just going to happen, and I think it's kind of fun. I mean, I think if everyone liked the same game, it'd be really boring. There'd be no diversity in the gaming landscape, and I kind of like getting into debates with people. Like, just, your game sucks. Well, no, it doesn't. Well, I disagree. Well, explain to me why. Well, I'll explain to you why it doesn't suck. You know, I kind of enjoy that. That's why I've been on Dice Tower Showdown so many times, although it's been a while. So I like that, and I don't mind when people trash a game. I'm certainly going to be the one to trash a lot of games, so I better be willing to take it if I'm dishing it out. One thing, though, I will say, and I had this thought as I was going through multiple comments, is that even though general negative feedback for a game that I like doesn't bother me, one of my biggest pet peeves are people who insult people who like a game. And by that, I mean, I ran into a lot of comments where people were like, if you like this game, there's something wrong with you, or some variation of that. This was especially true on like Cards Against Humanity, Tanto Cuore. I mean, for Cards Against Humanity, people thought, oh, you're just a vile human being if you like this game. For Tanto Cuore, you must be some kind of like freaky rapist pedophile if you like a theme that just has cute anime girls. And I even had a quote. I used some instances of this in the videos for the negative comments because I wanted to kind of point out how stupid these comments were. Like the one for Thunderstone Advance where the guy was like, if you like this game, I genuinely think something's wrong with you. Something like that, he said. That is just so ignorant. I can't believe it. Like, first off, we're not talking about like major life-altering things here. We're talking about games. They're supposed to be fun. You're not supposed to take them seriously. And if you don't like a game, that's fine. I mean, I make my entire entire portion of my hobby is just about reviewing games and a lot of times giving really negative feedback about them, so I get that. But to criticize people that like a game, it's ridiculous. There was a great quote. I listened to the Cracks podcast, and Jack O'Brien was talking about how absolutely pointless it is to tell people that they're stupid for liking something, and how the internet's #1 export is fool's errands, and that's kind of what that is. So criticize the game, don't criticize the people. I know that sounds like highfalutin or like melodramatic stuff, but it's true. It's just don't do it. It's stupid. One other thing I noticed on kind of a lighter note, there's a lot of recurring people in the negative comments for all the games that I like. If you get down to the 1s through 4s, there's a lot of people who I keep seeing over and over again for all the different games. I don't know what to think about that. It's a little disheartening because I'm like, wow, there's a huge chunk of the board game geek community I may not ever be able to game with if we were able to meet in person, because obviously our tastes in games are just way, way different. So there's that. I thought that was interesting and disturbing in a way. Okay. Lots of little things I wanted to go over. Okay, omissions off the list. There weren't actually a lot. I think I had a pretty solid list there of games I liked a lot. A couple things did slip through the cracks. Tokaido. I love Tokaido. It's a great worker placement game. Surprisingly vicious worker placement game, even though it's light. From Antoine Balza, one of my favorite game designers. Maybe my favorite game designer overall. It didn't make it on the list. The reason for that is because it was out of sight, out of mind. I traded or sold, I can't remember, the game away earlier in the year because I backed the collector's edition on Kickstarter. So I just said, well, I've played this a bunch of times. I don't need to play it anytime soon. Goodbye. And when it was off my shelf, I just forgot about it. So I think it probably would have been somewhere in like the bottom 50. So bottom 50 meaning 51 to 100. Maybe in the 50s or 60s, somewhere around there. Still pretty high. I just forgot. Next year, hopefully I'll have the collector's edition, and I'll definitely remember. Which really leads to an interesting question. Should the collector's edition of a game change your mind about the game itself? It didn't really do so with the Takanoko collector's edition, but whatever. Machikoro did not make it on the list. I like Machikoro a lot. I think it might have been able to make it into the bottom 10, like 90 to 100. It would have been a toss-up, though, because that game needs an expansion desperately, as great as it is. But also, it was out of sight, out of mind again, because I had it in my bedroom because there was a product defect with a lot of the copies that Panasaurus shipped out, where the ink was smudging off the cards. And mind you, this is just a game where you set cards out. So it's not like you're shuffling or manhandling these cards a lot, and they were still smudging off and ruining. So I had to put them in the bedroom until I got enough of the special sleeves for them. Other than that, you probably saw a lot of games on my shelf over the past year that didn't make it on the list. That's because they're just there for, decoration. No, the truth is I have a lot of games on my shelf I just haven't played yet, or I haven't played them enough. And therefore, I wasn't forcing myself to rush and get every single game played before I did my list. I just wanted to do my list. So they didn't make the cut. They didn't make it onto the list, but maybe next year. While I'm on the subject of rushing to get things done, I definitely will do this at a different time next year. I don't like being up against Christmas with the list. I definitely should have had this done sooner, but I shouldn't have scheduled it for mid to late December. Especially since now it's pushing up against the top 10 games of 2014, which I'm probably going to have to do on Sunday, because it's weird, because now it's like, oh, well, obviously, it's like spoilers. Like, obviously, the top 10 newest games on your top 100 list are going to be your top 10 games of 2014. So that was a weird thing, and I definitely am going to schedule this better next year. Part of it is that I don't want to run into Tom Vassal's and the Dice Tower's top 100 list. I'm not knocking them in any ways. I like them a lot. This is the inspiration for these, but I don't want to overlap. I think he wouldn't want to either. So I'll probably do it either later, maybe January of 2016, or earlier, much earlier, September or October. Maybe I'll confer with Tom and see when he plans on doing it next year. I don't know. There's that. Okay, I don't want to spend too much time on this, but I did some stats on the types of games that showed up on my list, the number of them. I'm just checking my battery. What the highest ranked what the highest ranked title of each type is. So real quick, there was about 20 co-op games. That's a lot. And the highest ranked one was Eldritch Horror, which is a fantastic game. I have the new expansion. I can't wait to play it. Party games. There were 9 party games. That's a pretty decent amount for a list of 100. The highest ranked was Cards Against Humanity. Suck it. One versus all games is a genre I'm really starting to like a lot. There were 6 of them, and the highest ranked was Super Dungeon Explorer, although Forgotten King is going to make it purely cooperative optionally. So I'm actually thinking it's going to make that game better. Hero games. This shocked me. Now, there will be a huge debate about this, and for that reason, I'm not going to list every single game that I considered for this category, because I'm sure people would be like, that's not a Euro. But by my ranking, there were 24 Euro games on my list. 24 games that could be considered Euro games. The highest ranked one, this is going to be open for debate. Seasons? Would you consider that a Euro game, or would you say it's a card game with some Euro game elements and random dice rolling? I don't know. If you're not counting Seasons, Small World would be the next highest one, because Small World's a Euro game. Deterministic area control, oh yeah. Semi-co-ops, there were 5. The highest one was Dead of Winter. Let's see. I guess I would throw Shadows of Camelot in that too. Filler games, there were 7 of them. The highest one was Lost Legacy. That game has really grown on me. I used to not like it nearly as much as Love Letter, but the newest expansions, at least for the Japanese version, elevated it quite a bit. Elevated it. Did I say that right? Yeah. Deck builders. There are obviously a lot of deck builders. There were actually 16 different deck builders. The highest ranked, Tanto Cuore. Also, Tanto Cuore was the highest ranked anime-themed game. I thought that would be interesting. I counted 11 of them, although I'm not counting games that were based off of anime per se, just games that have an anime look and feel to them. The last one I looked at was 2-player only games, which I don't have a lot of because I don't play a lot. It's starting to get 2-player games to the table, but I counted 8 of them. Star Realms was the highest ranked, and you can play Star Realms with 4 or 6 people, but you have to buy more decks. It's really meant to be a 2-player game, and it works best as a 2-player game. Let's see. Board Game Geek rankings. I thought this would be interesting too. If you go to Board Game Geek, you can check out their rankings of like the highest rated board games of all time, starting from like, it goes from 1 to like, I don't know, tens of thousands, dozens of thousands, whatever. And the highest ranked game on my list, in other words, how do I phrase this? The highest ranked game on my list that's also on Board Game Geek's top 100, I'm sure you get what I mean, is Robinson Crusoe, which comes in at like number 13, which is great. I mean, I'm so glad the game gets more attention, because I think that's going to be one of those games that we look back on as like a pivot point that revolutionizes games. There's going to be more and more games that are influenced by that in some form or another. Maybe not obviously, but count my words on that. Is that a good analogy? I don't know. I was surprised by Dead of Winter while we're on the subject of the top 100, because Dead of Winter rose up to like 42, I think. I don't feel like looking it up, but it's in the 40s of the top 100. Can you imagine? I love that game, but it's not even available. You can't even buy it. I mean, I have to believe it's just that there were enough copies got into circulation and enough people are sharing them, or sharing that game with as many people as possible, and just talking about it so much that people are probably rating it without even having played it. I don't know. Maybe I'm just speculating there, but hey, more power to him. I'm just really surprised. It was my number 1 surprise of 2014 for the Dice Towers End of Year podcast. Okay, so Robinson Crusoe was the highest ranked game on my list that corresponds to Board Game Geek's top 100. The lowest ranked, this isn't really fair though, is Ars Alchemia with 5,544, but you can't get it. It's impossible to get in this like the very, very small print run. It's like hard to get even in Japan, I'm sure. So, and I had other ones like Awakan was 4,142, and the Ravens of 3 Saharashi was 3,697. Okay, Heart of Crown was 3,677. If you're curious, Seasons, but again, all those Japanese games are because you can't get them anymore, so it's obvious. But Seasons was 111 the last time I checked. I've actually, there's someone on Board Game Geek put like made like a program where you can type in a game and see like its trajectory over a long period of time, like where it moved up and down in the top games on Board Game Geek. Seasons has hovered between like 103 and 115 like the entire time it's been out, pretty much. And in a way, I'm upset that it's kind of stagnated in that ranking. But then again, it is stagnated in like just above 100, which is great. Think of the thousands and thousands of games there are. I feel vindicated in my choice of that as number one. Not that I need people to vindicate me. Okay, when you see that Tanto Cuore is number one next year, nah, that's not going to happen, but it's a great game. The last thing I took a look at that I remember is publishers. I wanted to see how many games from individual publishers there were. Sorry, I'm checking the camera. And I didn't make this exhaustive at all because that would have taken way too much time that I just didn't feel like spending. But let's see, the number one company with the most games in my top 100, this is weird though, is Asmodee. And the reason this is weird is because Asmodee distributes a lot of games, but the original publisher of the games is usually just like under their umbrella and publishes the games on their own in Europe, but only has distribution through Asmodee to other countries. Whereas there are some imprints that are clearly owned by Asmodee, including Days of Wonder, which I threw in under the Asmodee banner. No, actually, I took them off. That's right, because I didn't include Fantasy Flight either. Fantasy Flight and Asmodee, or Days of Wonder, having been bought out by Asmodee this year. So that was a weird one. Asmodee might be a contentious number one pick for that. But if you want a clear-cut winner, this was actually surprising to me. Z-Man Games. Lots of games by Z-Man. The thing with Z-Man is they do a lot of smaller games too. So like Fairy Tale made it onto that list, and the Pandemic games. So Z-Man does a lot of good stuff. I mean, what can I say? They're not always the most impressive company. You don't read about them in the headlines all that much, but they have a pretty solid stable of games. Next is Fantasy Flight, which I actually would have thought would have been higher than that, but 8 games. AEG was next with 6 games. So that's a lot of games. And then it probably would have been like Plaid Hat, maybe. No, Plaid Hat only had a couple on my list, to be honest. But yeah, so that's it. I didn't have many other notes to go off of. That was just some stuff that really interested me there. And again, thank you so much for watching. Really, this has been a hit. I love it. I love doing it. It was a ton of work. It was making 10 top 10 lists plus intros and outros, which was it's a ton of work to make even one single top 10 list. But you know what? I had a great time. I'm glad that I did it. I love that you guys enjoyed it so much, and thank you so much for all the support you give me on my channel. It is Christmas Eve as of this moment, and it will be Christmas tomorrow. This will be the last time I'll get to talk to you on camera before Christmas, so I want to wish you all a very, very Merry Christmas, or whatever you celebrate. I don't see Christmas as a religious holiday. It's just a holiday that I like because I like this time of year. So happy holidays to you, or happy Hanukkah, although I think that's over. Whatever you happen to celebrate, thank you so much for watching, and you have a fantastic time with family and friends this week. Take care.